All right, hey, Marc Warnke here, the goat guy. Now, I breed late, and I want to make sure that I give you some timely information if you're going into kidding season and birthing and doing all that. And I want to give you some coaching on kind of some positioning. Now, before I get into that, please remember that two things. We have a birthing course that's amazing that shows you all this in super detail. Not only that, if you're a Goat Club member, you have a 911 call that you can make to us, and I get them all the time. The largest percentage of Goat 911 calls I get are always during birthing season. People got babies stuck, they don't know what to do, they've never entered before. Please educate yourself before you go into helping a goat have a baby. There's a lot to know. So let's talk about presentation. So when a baby goat comes out right, it's always nose and toes. So you have the head over the top of the toes and the hooves are facing down. So this is their position as they come out. That means they're coming out right. 90% of does with a properly presented baby will push that baby out without any assistance. And that's what I recommend you do in the beginning, because you don't know what you're doing, is just let the mama do what she does. The only time you want to intervene is when you get into difficulties. And with proper position, you still can. Sometimes there can be another baby in the birth canal along with them. Sometimes they can be really huge and they're having a hard time getting their shoulders through. So remember, when a goat is presenting like this, that means inside of a doe. So if you take her business end over here, tails right here, business end, that distance is only about that far between there and the cervix. So that head and nose and toes is actually still on the other side of the cervix. And the hardest thing for a goat to push through is the shoulders. It's not the head, it's the shoulders. So the head comes through and then the shoulders lock up. And that's when they struggle, especially when they're big. One of the advices that I would give you when you have a really big baby is when they're having a hard time pushing those shoulders through, if you can just grab one leg and get one leg, because what ends up happening is, so they're presenting like this, everything's square. When you grab one leg and pull it out, now you have this upper pectoral girdle kind of at an angle, and that'll have a lot of times be a tendency when you grab that one leg to pull them through. So I recommend one leg over two legs. When you have one leg, you set off that pectoral girdle and it has the ability to kind of angle through there, gives you something to hold on to. Now remember, if she is pushing, you want to try to kind of go along with her pushing. If she's been at the point where she's exhausted and she's not really pushing anymore, in the act of pulling, you'll initiate a push. So in pulling, she'll start pushing with you, and then it's a slow, gentle, continuous pressure, hoping that she's going to help you along. If not, very often it's one of those wiggle it back and forth, making little bits of progress, and then once you get those front shoulders out, that baby will just spill out. So that's kind of some advice on proper presentation, large baby. If we go into breech, breech is also quite normal. They will pretty easily have their babies in breech without any real assistance. The problem can come, hey, rooster tooster, get out of here, you. So when they're positioned breech, which would be back end first, most of the time they'll come out with the hooves. And when the way you know you have a breech birth is that the hooves are facing the other way. So normally they're like this. When they come out breech, you got two hooves and they're pointed down, toes down, the sole of their feet up. Now you know you have a breech. Sometimes they present butt first, and when they do, the way to know that is that you have a tail. And believe me, it's hard when you reach in there to recognize the difference in a tail, but when I'm feeling, I often feel, okay, I think that's a tail, so right underneath it should be a butt and the nithers, and then I can verify that's what I got in my hand is a tail. So now I know I have both legs forward, which is a more difficult position for them to have breech. If it's a smaller baby, traditionally they'll still be able to push it through just fine, but often you can help them out by pulling at least one leg out. If you can get one leg out, and again, if they're still kind of amongst the cervix, that front leg is actually really hard to bend and get it down in. Do remember that babies have really pliable bones at that point, so they are squishy and you can move them around. You just have to be careful that you're not wrecking the inside of the uterus, and by dragging that hoof through, you're trying to kind of protect that hoof through as you're pulling it through. But my recommendation is you let that doe try to push it out on her own. If she can get some of those legs out and you can get to those hips, when those hips start exposing, then that leg's really easy to pull. Now here's the thing with the normal presentation or any presentation in breech that you need to be aware of. So when the baby's coming out, again, business end of the doe over here, tail right here. When the baby is coming out, that umbilical cord is lined out in front of him, and it's lined along the side of the thickest point, which is his shoulders. What can happen is that in the process of being born, when baby goats are born, their umbilical almost always tears on its own. The risk that you have in a breech birth is that umbilical is going to tear while the shoulders and the head are still in the inside, and he's going to begin trying to breathe amongst all that fluid, which can create a problem. So the only thing I try to both remind myself and other people is that a breech is not a scary situation unless they get hung up at the very end. And if they get hung up at the very end, now the clock's ticking on trying to get that baby out. And you're trying to pull the largest part through, which is the front shoulders. And that's going to be important to do more quickly than normal to make sure you clear the birth canal before that umbilical tears. So that's breech. Okay, so then let's talk about one last one, which is the tangled multiple baby. This is a situation where you got to get your courage on. You need to know I wear extra large gloves, extra large to extra large gloves. I have big hands. I have people call me all the time and say, I can't get my hand in there. I can't get my hand in there. And my answer to them is, yes, you can, you're just scared. So you need to lube up really good, you need to wash up really good, and you need to go in there. And often what will happen when there's two in the birth canal is you'll have a doe that'll just keep laboring and laboring and laboring and laboring. And then she'll slowly get more tired and labor with less potency. Her pushes are super haphazard. She kind of does a little push and then she's done. Very often when you see that, and you should know, once a goat starts hard laboring, you almost always have a baby within 15 to 20 minutes. If you're at the 1 hour point, there's almost always something wrong. Very often what will happen, so I don't ever let it go over about 30 minutes of a doe pushing without me at least finding out what's going on with entering. And I'll enter just with my fingers. So I'll feel around and see if that baby's on the other side of the cervix and if they're right there. And if she's been languishing, and I'm going to give her probably another 10, 15 minutes. Now, something to know, when you enter, you initiate contractions. And when you enter initially and you find nothing in the cavity, the next thing I'll do is I'll go in and check the cervix. And the way that cavity works, you enter and then you kind of go slightly up, and then that will be the cervix. If the cervix is dilated, your hand will go right through it. If it's not, it becomes like either a small hole or a medium hole or no hole at all. And if it's no hole at all, that means they're not dilating, they're trying to push. That's also a problem. And that's one where you call a vet, because it's difficult. That is a next level thing, to be able to actually stimulate and open the cervix on your own. It takes some coaching to find the actual orifice itself, which is difficult. I've been there. So that's something that you're going to pray that will never happen to you. Once I feel that the cervix is open and now I have a doe that's been laboring for about 45 minutes, I'm going in. I'm going to go find out what's going on. And so I'm going to scrub up with povidone. It's an iodine soap mixture. It does two things. Number one is it sterilizes the environment. And also remember that it's not often that you're dirty, it's that the doe's area around the opening is dirty. So you need to clean that off too. It's got poop and debris and all the stuff that's on that back end of the business that you're going to be dealing with. You need to clean her up really well and then clean yourself up really well. And then I always use a little povidone extra because it's a fantastic lubricant, which then helps me to enter, it helps her. And so I put it on my hand in a loose fashion so I have it plenty in there. And once I go in, I'm going to go in on the other side of the cervix. So remember, I'm going to be about this deep right now, feeling on the other side of the cervix. That's almost always where the problem will be, because what will happen is 2 babies will come up and then they'll lodge on the other side of the cervix, and 2 are trying to come out at once and they won't fit. So what you have to do, what I do, is I figure out which baby is presenting the best. Now, often this has multiple legs. Sometimes it's a butt, one forward, one back. Do not think while you're in there, this is a time to hurry. And that's probably some of the best advice I'm going to give you. If you want to help a doe that's struggling in labor, being calm and making slow decisions outside of panic are going to serve you. And if you can't tell what you're feeling, just spend more time. Some cues: when I'm feeling a head and I'm not sure it's a head, I feel for teeth. So I'll go in there and I'll see if I can feel the corner of their mouth and go, okay, that's a head, because I can feel the teeth. Sometimes I'm able to feel an ear, and I know the rigidity of an ear, especially down at the base, and that'll tell me it's a head. A tail is hard to tell, and it's really hard to tell which way a baby's facing by their legs. You have to get into their body. And remember, there is a position that they can present in, which is very difficult to deal with, which is legs back or forward, and head back. When you have a head back, you cannot pull that baby through with their head back through the cervix. You have to line that head back out, which can be difficult because most often they grew up the whole time in this position, and so this is where their head wants to sit, and by putting it straight, you're putting it in a position it hasn't been in for the whole gestation period, or at least the last couple of months, and you have to straighten that head out, and it wants to keep flopping back. So a lot of times you're in there and you're grabbing legs and keeping that chin. That's how I do it. I keep that chin from turning with my fingers, and then I'm grabbing legs and I'm pulling through, and once that head enters the cervix, they'll come right out. So that was another position that can be helpful for you. And I want to finish that while I'm there, is that you should also be using, if you have it, those catch cords. Okay. It's a cord that you use that's metal, that's wrapped with plastic. You can get it in any Home Depot. Put it over the top of their head, and then it gives you the ability to have that thing running right across the top of their chin, and now you can control the head and pull with the legs at the same time, and that's another tool you can use to keep that head flopped forward. I've never needed that in, I don't know how many hundreds of births I'm in. I've never needed that. What do they call it? Anyway, so I'm getting old, you guys. So now back to twins, and I'm sorry I've gone down some rabbit holes, but you'll find all this valuable if you find yourself here. If you have 2 in, you need to assess first the baby that's in the best position to come out. So you're hoping for one that's nose and toes. So if you got one that's nose and toes, what you actually have to do is you have to push that other baby back. And you don't have to push them all the way back to behind the other baby. You just have to get them to slide out of the way so you can get the other one up into the cervix. So very often what I'll do is whatever position they're in, once I assess which one I'm going to pull, if the one on the left is the one I'm not going to pull, I'm going to shove that back down. And that is the critical moment where you realize the difference between the legs. Because right now you got 4 legs likely in there with heads and butts and all the other stuff. And when you shove that one back, it pulls all those other appendages that were confusing you on who is what. By pushing the one back, now you know you have one goat and you can begin to bring it out. So that's the one that you're going to get out. Once you get the jam out, let the doe try to have the other baby. Now, if she's exhausted and she's done, you may have to go in and get that other one. But a lot of times, once you get that blockage out, she'll go right through birth just like normal from there. So all those different ways that babies can present are important to understand. And again, I can't stress you enough, the most important course out of all the courses I have to save you and your family heartache because often you'll end up losing everyone, the mother and the babies. And I can't tell you how often I hear that. And it starts from before the birth, in making sure that you have a proper feeding regimen, how you help care for her after the birth. All those things are critical. Goats do this very well on their own most of the time, but when they don't, it can go really bad. So I just can't say enough. If you don't know or don't feel confident about this information, please get the birthing course. It could help you so much. So I hope you find that helpful. Marc Warnke, the Goat Guy, signing out.